My mother-in-law has decided to leave us. It's too cramped for us to live in the same apartment. She went to look for a new place to move to. We were saving money together for a new place to live. My wife says, "Help Mom, go with her." Why should she have to push herself on public transportation? I agreed, jumped in the car, started it, waited for her. And here she comes out, all businesslike and dressed up. She sat in the front seat next to the driver, and we drove off. As I drove, looking at the road, I thought about how sorry I was to let Martha go. I had gotten used to her, and even more than that, I will say that lately, I had started peeking at her when she didn't notice. I haven't been able to see much. That she comes out of the bathroom in a bathrobe, hair wet, all steamed up, bare feet in flip-flops. I'm hanging around somewhere nearby. Martha walked by, humming some song. Sometimes I would toss and turn in my sleep, unable to fall asleep for a long time. Martha slept in the next room, next to her granddaughter. She had her own little crib. And I, when no one was home, sat on it and imagined different things. Martha, the mom, is beautiful. In the front, impressive, linens barely holding together, almost bursting at the seams. And the back is sheer beauty. When she puts on those tight pants, it's just amazing. I was driving in the car with these thoughts swirling around in my head, and I looked at my mother-in-law. She was sitting on the seat, loosening the collar of her caftan. It was hot, and she was looking at the road. I looked down. Her legs were normal. Her knees were nice. In short, my type. I'm attracted to big women. I can't help it. Martha was in a bad mood, frowning and thinking about something. Maybe she doesn't want to leave us either, I thought, cheering up. Maybe she doesn't want to leave us either, I thought, cheering up. What if she's also squinting at me when I don't notice it? I was getting stuffy. I turned on the air conditioner. I felt hot, not just from the stuffiness, but from my thoughts. I imagined unfolding the back seat and so on. My back became wet, but my imagination was fine. Martha sensed something, looking at me carefully as we stood at a stoplight, waiting for the red to go out and the green to come on. "Why are you so serious, Ben?" asked Martha, unbuttoning a button on my sweater. "Yeah, I forgot to tell you, that's what she calls me, Ben." But I respond back, sometimes jokingly too. "No, Mom, what makes you say that?" The light turned green. We drove on. My mother-in-law fidgeted in the seat, apparently realizing that we'd been together for the last few days. Soon she would move, and that would be it. We would see each other only on holidays. I remembered the time when the power went out in the house, and, while we were looking for a flashlight, I ran into her in the dark. I don't know what came over me. I kissed her on the cheek once, and I remember joking, "I'm sorry. I thought you were my wife. It won't happen again." She ran around the apartment with red cheeks until the evening. Of course she was horny. It amused me, and I wanted more. But I never had that opportunity again. Meanwhile, in the car next to me, my mother-in-law was sitting next to me. Something had changed in her face. It became determined. She turned to me and said, "Remember, Ben, when our power went out?" I almost let go of the steering wheel. "Yeah, well, I guess you haven't forgotten that one either. That's why you're sitting here so sweaty." "I remember. I said. How could you forget? And looked at her expressively. And then what we'd both been waiting for happened. She started pulling on her sweater more often. I kept looking in her direction. I couldn't wait. I pulled the car into a quiet place where people didn't walk. I turned toward the woods and hugged her. Of course, my mother-in-law did the same. I didn't see any embarrassment in her. And what embarrassment if we had been peeping at each other for so long and only furtively glanced at each other, sighing heavily. All patience comes to an end. We climbed into the back seat. I quickly folded it up. It was a dream come true. How many times had I imagined this exciting moment? I don't think it's been like this for a year or two. We recovered, went back to normal. Martha smiled. Thank you, she said. Ben. No problem. Always happy to help. Let's get on with it. Martha calmed down. She stopped staring sadly out the window. She looked like she'd taken a shower. That's what a raspy shower does to a person. As for me, I really wanted to continue. We hadn't tasted much yet, so we had to hurry. We pulled up to the first apartment. My mother-in-law went to look. I stayed in the car. I was absolutely sweltering. She got out and shook her head negatively, saying it didn't fit. We drove on. We drove to the next address, stopped 5 times on different streets. And she kept shaking her head. She found faults everywhere. The hallway was small. The toilet was poorly finished. The windows were on the wrong side. That's her business. I didn't interfere. She should live in the new apartment, not us. We'll stay in the old one. These thoughts made me feel uncomfortable again. Dusk was fading. Evening was approaching. It was time to go home. My wife called on the phone. How are you? She asked if Mom had found a new place to live. I replied that everything was quiet for now. All options were off the table. My wife replied, well, okay, she'll find one tomorrow, not today. I figured the day after tomorrow would be better. On the way home, I turned down an alley, stopped the car. It was dark, no one around. My mother-in-law and I climbed into the back seat of the car again. This time, both my mother-in-law and I enjoyed our entertainment more. As they say, we knew each other better. And that makes all the difference. The first time, like the first pancake, is always a failure. We cleaned up. We drove up to the house. My wife asked what was wrong. My mother-in-law said she didn't like any of the apartments. I muttered something, looking rather tired. I had a lot of work to do. My wife gave us tea, even baked us cookies, I remember. We sat in the kitchen and left. The mother-in-law was pleased. A couple of times, I caught her long, sly look. I answered her with a nod until my wife saw it. We'll definitely do it again, you bet. Anyway, for now, my mother-in-law is looking for a new place to live, and I'm sort of my mother-in-law's personal driver. And not just any driver. I have another function. It's better than driving.